In January of 2013, I released my third album, The Narrative. It was a slight departure from my previous two albums. I began to celebrate Black Christian tradition, Black intellectual tradition, and I talked about justice a lot. And I got blasted by Christians, by racists, by white and Black folks. And it discouraged me a little bit, but I kept on in the direction in which I was going because I felt it was authentically me. And I believed in my art. In 2016, I released The Narrative and had similar responses from certain people. Not as bad, but as you know, I got kicked out of Lifeway. And to this day, as I said this before, I don't think I got kicked out of Lifeway because I said the word penis. I think I got kicked out of Lifeway because of me challenging political structures and systems. And yet I continued in my direction because I believed in my art. And here's why. Here's why I continue is because years ago, I came into this quote from Toni Morrison. And as she was speaking at Portland State University in 1975, she says this: "It's important, therefore, for you to know who the real enemy is and to know the function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and so you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says that you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says that you have no kingdom, so you dredge that up. None of that is necessary. There is always one more thing. I've given up wasting my time trying to change the mind of distractors. I just don't find it is a good use of my brilliance. These individuals seem to speak the same language of you, but they can't hear you when you speak. And so therefore you are trying to figure out what language to speak in. And so, yes, I believe that the gospel changes lives. It changes hearts. And I do believe in reconciliation. But I think there's a difference between reaching the lost and trying to reach religious hypocrites and religious stiffnecks, and especially people who refuse to see you, and also people who see you as an enemy. I've taught at liberal institutions. I work now at an evangelical institution. So I've worked all the way in between liberal and conservatives. And the reason why I've been able to do that is because I know who I am. And I think they know who I am. And one thing that I can do is very similar to what Frederick Douglass said is I will work with anybody to do good and no one to do harm. I can appreciate the truth when it comes from anyone. And I think the world needs more of that. Now, I don't mean that in some passive, let's just all get along way, because we all need to challenge wickedness and evil. But we do it with full of truth and full of grace. I'm not trying to impress intellectuals, black or white. I'm not trying to impress liberals. I'm not trying to impress conservatives. I'm not trying to impress the hip hop culture. I'm not trying to impress the culture. I am here to live on a life of obedience unto one person. And yes, here comes the cliche, Jesus who sits on the throne. And that is it. I am unapologetically black. I am unapologetically Christian, and both of those probably need more explanation. And I'm probably not black enough for some people. I'm probably not Christian enough for some people. And that's perfectly fine. But my art has always been, well, most of my art has always been unapologetically black and unapologetically Christian. And this is the reason why I think art is important today, and why I find myself trying to promote music and art in such a chaotic time, because art is important in times of depression. People need to learn how to reimagine a world that is broken. I began working on this album in 2020. And it's taken me 5 years because life got in the way, because working on myself and my own issues. But the funny thing is this album is just as relevant today as when I first started working on it in 2020. And that is because I think people are trying to create a utopia. We're trying to recreate the Garden of Eden, some people, Garden of Eden. But the reality is we live in the Garden of Gethsemane, where there's pain, where there's suffering, where there's violence, where there's betrayal. But Jesus shows us how to love and how to live when you have no political power, how to serve people despite your own interests. And yes, I pray for this country. I pray for peace. I pray for civility. But what happens if God decides to judge this nation and bring destruction, is he still good? I believe we are in midnight and people are asking, is it a good culture? God bless.